Yeah,
Shall we start?
yeah, we can start.
A very warm good morning to all of you. We will begin right now as time is passing by and we had scheduled at 11. The COVID-19 crisis has thrown many new challenges amidst us, especially for the vulnerable sections of the society. Pandemic outbreak, we know, and men differently, making existing challenges more acute, or there could be newer solutions as well. As women constitute nearly 70% of their social workers, over 90% of women workers in India being in informal sector, we need to look into the plight of all kinds of women, all categories of women, working mothers, housewives, girls, migrant labor, and what are their current dilemma and issues. Has the unpaid and care related responsibilities gone up? What kind of psychosocial issues are they facing today? It is important that we engage ourselves with these vital issues today, and there is an immense need to have knowledge sharing as to find solutions to these problems.
Yeah,
So, Jain College, under the esteemed leadership of our principal, Dr. Ashok Wadia, has been taking the lead in organizing several such events for knowledge sharing, being provided platforms to students and faculty across the city and in India. And today's talk is one such in the series of those talks. The biggest so far, in which nearly 62 registrations have been done, and we are hoping gradually everybody will join it. So now I request our principal, Dr. Ashok Wadia, to kindly give his opening remarks for today's talks. Thank you. Over to Wadia, sir.
Thank you, Archana, for introducing me in that manner. That is, I think my team is doing a lot of work, and that's very important. And I'm so glad that it's my pleasure to have my good friend Dr. Vibhuti Patel, who is joining us and accepted this kind of invitation. And she is not only known for her giving us speeches and oration and all those kind of things, but more importantly, so her involvement in the issues which she handles. And she has been always associated with Jain for a long time and always guides us in various things in our capacity as a BOS members and so on.
Right.
Now, when you say about the gender implication of COVID-19, this is like a unique topic. Like last time we had a webinar or something which was different, like food production and the jobs.
Correct.
And this kind of topics, I don't believe that they should be only for teachers and for students. Rather, for the students, it's very important because they are going to take the flag forward. And I'm glad that many of these principals who have joined, I must welcome them all. That is, you actually are the one make this kind of event successful. But when you bring your student, I think that is very, very important because they are the one who will take certain things ahead. And I think there will be more Vibhuti Patel madams which will be there in the future to carry out such kind of topics. I still remember, I don't know, that is in my college, when the first women development cell was created, I was, as a male member, I was put on that. Okay. So maybe they thought something is there. And so I may be able to help. So there is no gender bias in all our faculty where the women are concerned. They are rather not only empowered, they are rather in a larger number. Okay, we are in the minority, and they're all empowered. Okay, that is the reason you'll find today Archana ma'am and Safina ma'am, both of them are taking initiative. I was wondering Safina ma'am will talk about the history department, because that's a very important, what are the activities they are carrying out. Coming to the point, like say this issue, I know that I'm not the expert and can talk about it, but as a perceptive from my side as a male member, of course, I always, ensure that I was not just being a principal in Jain College, but at home also I participate in the any kind of activity which is there, whether it's a household or anything. So it's like a sharing. But I think this particular COVID has also brought the situation. There are maybe many negative things could be there, but the positive part is that I think any male member will respect the kind of activity the woman carries out. If she's a working woman, then naturally she has to ensure that the whole household is depending on her. I'm not just talking about preparation of food, but organizing everything. And then she goes and works in the with the corporate world or institute or teaching, and then comes back and ensures that again everything is proper, so that when any person of the family member or anybody who comes home, is well served. She is the host. She is the ensures that all the family members are treated as a guest in her own house. So now you will find that the value of the labor is not the only thing, but the value of the woman also is realized, I believe so, by everyone. And so this particular topic is definitely important, and ma'am will definitely enlighten everyone on this. So sharing is something which is very important, that all of us must realize it, and it is not something which is only for a particular gender. Rather, it should be for all of us to respect each other and take it forward. So I think it's very important that now you introduce ma'am and then ma'am, because all of you people are not here to listen to me. It's just because I'm a Jain principal, they will quietly listen for some time. Then they will maybe, switch off and they will go do something else. So please let us go ahead with the ma'am's talk because we are already late. Thank you very much, ma'am, for joining, and all the members, thank you very much for coming to on this particular platform. Your views will be very important, and I think that is how the society will develop. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This talk has been organized under the aegis of Department of History at Jai Hind College. So I request Ms. Safina Rakhangi, the HOD, to say a few words. Ms. Safina, you can go ahead. Just a second, I'll just...
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to Dr. Vibhuti, our principal, Dr. Ashok Wadia, my colleagues in the department, and the teaching fraternity, and the students who have enrolled for today's webinar. It's indeed our pleasure of the History Department to welcome you all for this initiative taken by Dr. Archana Mishra. And it is first of its kind, not only because we have a great speaker, but the topic itself is such which is very close to our heart, and it touches every aspects of our life, deals with a particular segment of the society, which is so very important, and in fact, I could say is a backbone of the society. The history department is one of the most important department of the college, if Dr. Wadia would agree to it, because it is always engaged in organizing, hosting events, co-curricular and academic relevant activities, which not only provide a holistic approach to education, but there is an involvement of students, faculty, and we really strive to see that students build skills and have a better understanding of the world in its correct perspective. So the Department of History is basically headed by me and my colleagues, Dr. Archana Mishra and Ms. Firdaus Sarnobat. We have another person in the junior college, Ms. Yasmin Hashmatullah. And the department has been really doing well. We have got 4 certificate courses, level 1, level 2 in international relations, another certificate course, level 1 and level 2 in Indian cultural heritage. And besides that, student seminar is an annual feature of the department. The papers that are presented are research papers on a relevant topic, which are guided by the faculty. And these papers later are published in the department magazine known as Umloka. Another regular feature is the research methodology workshop that we have. And this research methodology workshop this year has been interdisciplinary. We also had a workshop which was blog workshop for blogging, where students were given training for blogging. Dr. Archana Mishra had arranged for the same. And our internal assessment for the SYBA history students was based on the blogging workshop. Besides that, we also had the 150-year birth anniversary celebration of Mahatma Gandhi, which was another feature. And in this manner, we have several workshops, several guest lectures, and we do try our best to improve, you could say, and enrich ourselves, and at the same time try to see that the flag of Jai Hind flies higher and higher. I think there's so much more that I can say, but we all are eagerly waiting to hear Dr. Vibhuti Patel. So I welcome Dr. Vibhuti Patel again, and I request you to please start the session. Thank you.
First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Ashok Padia,
Would like to intervene.
Dr. Archana Mishra, and Professor Apina Rakhani.
Intervene, 1 minute.
Yeah.
Would like to introduce you, ma'am.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's my honor and privilege today to introduce our speaker of the day, Professor Vibhuti Patel, who has done her PhD in economics from University of Mumbai and has been awarded visiting fellowship to the London School of Economics and Political Science from the Association of Commonwealth Universities, UK. Currently, she is a professor at Advanced Center for Women's Studies at the School of Development Studies, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. A person of great accolades and high academic stature, she has received a postdoctoral fellowship from the Association of Commonwealth University that enabled her to work as visiting faculty to the Development Studies Institute at the London School of Political Science. She has authored and co-authored several books and has contributed 100 papers as chapters in various books. She has also authored several research papers, comments, commentaries, monographs, and has been a recipient of several citations and awards from Mahila Sangh, from Barnes Association, from MAVA, from Maharashtra government, and from has also received the Young Environmentalist Award and the Times Achiever Award, the Times Foundation Award for Social Work. She has been also the member of editorial board of the International Journal of Economics, Education and Development at Switzerland, and has been the editor of Bharatiya Samajik Chintan, Indian Academy of Social Sciences, Allahabad, Pragati, a Journal of Indian Economy, Social Modernity, Urban World, and several others. The list is very long and we can go on and on for a person of this stature as Professor Vibhuti Patel. But now would like to call upon ma'am to kindly address and take over. Very warm welcome to you, ma'am, and to all the participants. And let's go ahead with the talk. Ma'am, please share your screen.
First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Ashok Wadia, Professor Archana Mishra, and Professor Sapina Rakhani for all the hard work that they have done to organize today's talk, and especially on the subject, very important, gender implications of COVID-19 pandemic. And this introduction that you have given. Jai Hind College has always been at the forefront of knowledge construction. It's a very amiable, two new suggestions from the Board of Studies. To be member of a Board of Studies in Jai Hind College means you really have to work hard, and they take also your suggestion very constructively. It is just not your signature that they want on the minutes, but it's actually very good exercise, mutually beneficial to all the members. With that, I think I come to the topic of today, COVID-19 pandemic and the resultant lockdowns in several countries like UN dates of 171 countries, which is demanding social distancing and the stay-at-home order has had a gender differential impact, and I think a lot of documentation has happened in but yeah. So the United Nations, which they collected data from several, because there are many other countries who got COVID which are much earlier than in India. In December, it started in China, and then it went to many other countries. And you can, women started at a desk called In Focus Gender Equality Matters in COVID-19 response. I would like to quote the statement by the director of this UN Women, and I quote, "The COVID-19 pandemic is not just a health issue, but it is a profound shock to our societies and economies. And women are at the heart of care and response efforts underway. As frontline respondents, health professionals, nurses, doctors, IRBs, sanitation workers, community volunteers, transport and logistics managers, decision makers. In India, we have so many women interest. Women are making critical contribution to address the outbreak and supporting work that they are doing to the community. Most caregivers at home and in our communities are also women. Additionally, they are at the increased risk of infection and loss of livelihood. And that I think we have seen, like so many stories and reports.
Sorry, ma'am. Can you share your screen, please? This is.
Is not shared.
No, ma'am. Sorry, I'm just to interrupt you in between.
How do you do?
Share
At
screen.
the bottom, there will be a icon. You have to click that.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Sorry, I just interrupted you.
Oh my God. One minute, huh? I'll call her. I need to share this.
Ma'am, there's a button share screen. So you have to select the presentation and
Yeah, yeah. I think first share screen. Apple number. We'll have to close this.
Ma'am, the same one which had earlier stopped.
First, we'll have to minimize it. Share screen.
yeah,
There will be a toolbar.
the
Toolbar it will
The
be
bottom, at the bottom, green colored.
there. Yeah, bottom toolbar is there.
Yeah. Share.
Tool,
Got it.
good, good.
it's not visible as
No,
yet.
it's not seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Now it is. Now it is shared.
Slideshow.
Slideshow. Second.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Now,
Now it is.
Please go ahead.
So, and the other very important issue with the UN director has raised is about the violence, gender-based violence, and also the question of reproductive health issues of women in the midst of COVID. So it's very important to understand the gender experience of COVID-19, which are shaped by a lot of intersectionalities of inequality, whether it is in the labor market or intra-household power relations, at stay-at-home and lockdown orders in matter concerning who will look after the housework, who will do, like all are not like Dr. Ashok Wadia, who share housework, or the question of stress, and also very many reports. Like in 1 month, the National Commission for Women has received 1 lakh complaints of domestic violence. So it is a very, very important. The whole the stress and the insecurities which are building up come out on women, both within the family and within the lockdown area, and also they are moving because there are we have 92% of the workforce in informal sector. Many of them have lost their jobs and they are migrating. So working, another very important concern is that working from home along with housework and gendered experiences of household responsibilities, they are also very important to note, because along when you are home, there are expectations that the family members have. So that is very important. The question that along with all the work that we are doing, we also have to look after ourselves, because if others fall ill, women will look after. But when women fall ill, then the whole household system gets collapsed. Then as frontline health workers, like we have 70% of the health workers, healthcare service workers are women. That means as nurses, as ayabais, as sanitation workers, as health administrators, and as doctors, they have many, many responsibilities. And also when it comes to government is now providing the food security, lot of volunteers, like in today's program also, so many women's organizations and the community-based organizations and civil society organizations have joined this program, because there also we see massive gender differential impact of coronavirus. So women as workers, women as homemakers, women as patients, women as employees, and women and women with special needs, for example, women-headed households managed by widows, deserted, separated due to migration, and women in difficult circumstances, homeless women, they all have a special need, and that has been documented. Over and above this, we also have intersectionality of caste, like middle class women, women from economically secure background would have problem, but there will be more problem for those who are like ethnic minorities, religious minorities, those who are from the caste which are excluded. So I think this is a very important topic that we will discuss. The most important debate that has been taking place over last 3 months with regard to coronavirus is that unpaid care work that women are doing. And the statistical wing of the United Nations has also done compilation of 171 countries which are currently affected by COVID-19. And the data, and I quote, the data from rapid assessment surveys also shows that in all countries, women are more likely to see increase in both unpaid domestic work, that means cooking, cleaning, carrying, collection of fuel, collection of water, collection of fodder, which are unpaid, but they augment the family resources, though that kind of work also, because that you have to really fend for it, put in more labor to get all these household needs. And also unpaid care work because of the looking after the people who are ill around you. In addition, they also are more likely than men to say they are in charge of performing all 3 activities. 1, unpaid child care, 2, unpaid adult care, and unpaid domestic work. So we can see that because of this, there is a special problem that women face, women as health givers. Like if you see, women make up 70% of frontline health workers, and you can see there are several photographs on media where you can see women very bravely working in this thing in state like Kerala since December. Job. When it comes to women in formal and informal economy, where we see that women are they are facing increased domestic care burden in the wake of child care. And also, if they are earning members, they have to work from home. And that's why we see that they are juggling between the demands of the office and also demands of the family members. Middle and upper class educated women employed who are working from home, as they are given information like technology enabled communication channel. They are working on laptop, they are working on smartphone, and they also juggle with the housework, childcare, homeschooling, because now even their children are getting lessons on either Zoom, or they are attending webinars. They have to look after their homeschool, their homework, and and also simultaneously do office work without any support of domestic help. Like we know that India has nearly 10 million domestic workers working in the urban centers. Now they are also there as workers. They are suffering because they are away, they are unemployed. Not all employers are giving them salary. I come to that bit later. I get to, like recently after lockdown, I am getting like 10, 12 to 15 newspapers in Gujarati, Hindi, Marathi and English on my smartphone. PDF of this thing, and many of them are reporting very inspiring stories of life under the lockdown. For example, bonding and interpersonal care and concern and dialogue, intergenerational dialogues among the family members, because otherwise in the urban centers people are always working like a robot. They just don't they just say hi and bye to this thing. Now they are at least taking lunch and dinner together. I'm talking about the people from an economically secure background. The second one is that men are sharing housework in terms of cooking, cleaning. Like you see in the news, that is one page currently in English and regional newspaper is allocated to the kind of work that men are doing, right from shopping, gardening, and looking after children's homework, and also reading stories to them and with children. Third way of interrelations, that young men and women, they are involved in a community service and taking care of lonely elderly people, either by phone or visiting them in their vehicle. If they have a four-wheeler, they are doing so. There are many stories. Like first, the kind of volunteerism that we are seeing among the youth is very high, and maybe because now we have that has become a priority, and lot of reportage is also taking place. The fourth one is that learning new skills, like because people are during this lockdown period, many people are learning new skills online or from each other, and joining for e-learning courses, webinars, talks, panel discussions on Zoom, WebEx, and several other platforms which are now available. Either they are free, or there is a nominal fees that they are charging. Most of the publishing houses, the most expensive books are now available online for free. You can download them during the period of lockdown. Another very important thing that is happening, that I think globally also it is happening, that making phone calls for a long conversation with a friend, which happened in this jet set life. People are contacting their friends, ex-colleagues, old neighbors, and relatives with whom they had lost touch for many, many years. And the sixth very important aspect and the good news about the COVID-19 is that unprecedented people-to-people support. I think I find it very, very reassuring. And the immediate intervention in crisis management in terms of donations, in terms of cash, online money transfer, the in kind, like so many groceries. First time I'm seeing that I have experienced as a person who is in the mid 60s. We knew the kind of things that were happening during 1963 Indo-Pak War or Indo-China War, at the time of floods, at the time of earthquake, at the time of plague in Surat. The trade was.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Hello?
Hello, ma'am. Some people are telling that the sound is not coming very clear. So can you please put your volume on maximum? And if you need to change the slides.
No, I think ma'am's voice is proper. I think they
If you can
should
keep
see
your
about
mobile a
their
little
doc.
away.
It's better to put the headphones. They should put the headphones. They will be able to hear better.
Okay, sir. I'll just.
Ma'am's voice is proper. Ma'am
Okay.
doesn't have to do anything.
Okay,
Yeah, proper.
Yeah, I could hear clearly.
So, with the social media platforms also, you see they are helping in a variety of aid, both in cash and kind. Any kind of a malpractice is immediately identified, and the system is working. The first 2 weeks of confusion, I think now the system is in place. So many ordinances have come. In fact, TIS has compiled volumes on 3 issues on these new ordinances by the state government, central governments, globally, by the international organizations that have come up. So I think the information has crisis management and is in responding to the any kind of emergency in a big immediately in a short time. The story, like coming to the stories of informal sector, like most of the workforce in India is in the unorganized sector. According to ILO, and I quote, the unorganized sector workers plus informal workers in the organized sector has remained relatively stable at the 92%. With the overall category of informal workers, the largest group is the own account workers. So women who people like vendors or self-employed people, tea shop, chai wala, or person who they are the own account workers. They are more than 1/3 of the workforce is that, and there is a big chunk of unpaid family work. If you have a small scale industry, if you have a tiny business, then the women and children of the family, they all contribute to this thing, but it is not counted. This informalization has been more pronounced in of women workers. In India, like 94% of women are employed in the unorganized sector, involved in work, dignity of labor, social security, decent and timely wages, and in some cases, even right to be called as workers. So they are not even considered as workers. Lockdown has had a dire implications on this category of vulnerable population. And over and above, women-headed house, people with disability, pregnant women, homeless people, lonely elderly, it is stigmatized transgender community. In overcrowded shelter homes and makeshift tents, and also in the overcrowded bastis, they face a lot of problem because them is not possible. The daily wage laborers, head loaders, construction workers, street vendors, domestic workers, security guards, small scale scrape and garment industries, barbers who manage their survival by daily income, they have nothing left due to employment and confinement over months. They feel that they are extremely now. Civil society and NGOs they are. One realization, if you today's newspapers, they all are saying that all, especially 5 to 6 state government chief ministers, they have acknowledged how the migrant workers in Pradesh, even Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh had incorporated their names also if they are not visible. One is the responsible media coverage, very important. The dialogue of the elected representatives with people, very important, because that is the major learning from the Chinese experience. When the China had a COVID pandemic, there was a lot of secrecy, there was no day-to-day reporting, and that created tremendous anxiety, and also it created massive human damage also. From the very beginning, transparency and the media coverage has been given a premium. Most of the decision makers in the electoral body, whether they are MLAs or MPs or chief ministers, especially, they are constantly available to the media. They are coming on TV, coming on they are releasing official videos, they are accepting phone calls from other states. So I think that has eased in a way that the state is accepting the human miseries that is happening in the society and trying to address it. So first thing is to acknowledge there are human miseries, to acknowledge there are crises at different fronts. Once you acknowledge that, then you will also create the structures and mechanisms to address those crises. Second one is the shelter with utmost care of hygiene. I think that has been accepted, and we can see, we are seeing so many videos and photographs of this thing, that through initial hitches were there immediately after lockout, but now you see so many unused places, whether they are unused flats or breaches places or community places or the buildings owned by the local self-government bodies. They are shelters are created for the homeless people, for people who are who can't pay rent because they have not received their salary. Third one is a universalization of PDS without any conditionality of eligibility of identification. So now, for the first time, like we are several state governments have accepted that they would disperse, they would from the FCI go downs, the grace would be given to people without demand for Aadhaar card or any other voter card. And people, that is one very encouraging thing, but still over and above that, lot is needed. The list of beneficiaries to be prepared by district collectors and the local ward office, I think in the cities, that is also now getting streamlined, and the continuous database is generated. Water tankers and mobile toilets, I think they are also, most of the local self-government bodies, they have accepted women's organizations, health organizations, like a People's Health Assembly, Jana Swasthya Sabha, or civil liberties organizations. They have also highlighted this through their petitions, through their memorandum, through their signature campaign. Health post of government organizations, I think they are overworked, and now there are several state governments have come up with a GR that private sector has to be, they have to provide the services. They should open up their nursing home, which they had closed down after lockdown, and they are being, or they have to join the public health sector, public health health providers in combating coronavirus. There is a special focus that which the women's organizations have highlighted about the reproductive and child health, the antenatal care, postnatal care, women in labor, that has to be given topmost priority, because initially the whole focus of public health system was on COVID-19, and so many cases of women delivering on road or women not being admitted in the hospital that used to happen, but now the system is in place. Another very important thing is the variety of helpline, like counseling services for children, for survivor of domestic violence, for people who are lost while leaving their place. I think for that, and also for psychological counseling, both educational institutions, several universities have started helplines, several institutions have started, NGOs, women's organizations, they have started, and also facilitated the process of repatriation to their rural homes. I think Maharashtra was the first. Maharashtra government declared it, I think, 2 weeks, that those who are within the state, they could go back to their rural homes, and the facilities were provided. Today, we also got the news that 1,200 workers, they have already, they are on their way to their respective states, and 6 special trains, like Shramik trains for the workers, they have been organized. Payment for all areas to the workers by their employers. The government has given GRs that they should be given, but it's not happening. Informal sector, in fact, there are panic calls of domestic workers in a big way are coming to the NGOs, and they are the ones who are providing support to women, to informal sector workers whose employers have not paid. In fact, some of the MPs and MLAs from those sending states like Bihar, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, they are also approaching the politicians to see to it that they are looked after. Now, so plight of migrant women and children, if we see, like there are 309 million women workers they are the migrant women in our country. Migrant workers, daily wage earners, unorganized sector workers, including self-employed women and men, they are worst hit due to the loss of wages, no money to pay rent and buy housing and necessities, exposure to hunger, no access to water, resulting in dehydration, malnutrition, infection, and worst of all, police brutality. So I think that there is a lot of documentation, and now the system is getting in place, and a lot of social sector intervention is being happening. Here I am showing you the pictures of Ghar Bachao, Ghar Banao, or several religious organizations. So it is in a big way, like 1,500 migrant workers in one place, 800 in another place, 400 in third place. So I think that is a very important thing that is happening, massive, and their army of volunteers has been increasing. Those who were first, only who gave the cash, in course of time, they also became, personally, they started volunteering, and they are volunteering irrespective of any prejudices. So even if a woman in affluent area, she doesn't have one particular place, she is alone in the flat and she wants to get reunited with her family members, volunteers, they would have a relay race from, say, from one place to another and in a rickshaw, and then they would in a car. That way, a lot of support has come up. Another very important concern that we have, that women in agriculture, I think not much is written about what is happening to agrarian sector, but only after Maharashtra government gave this GR that farmers can directly sell and they can directly contact the communities and do the direct sell. I think that has been a very important initiative that has come up. So what we see that India is already in the middle of Rabi harvesting season, where standing crops must be harvested, processed and sold. The government of Maharashtra has already issued notification declaring that harvested grain or fruit or vegetable can be either sold to the mandis or they can be directly reached to the consumers. Government of India also issued, like in the third the guidelines in their guidelines, they say that from 14th February, the farmers were allowed to come to the city and do the direct sale. Procurement at the maximum support price and the storage needs in the Food Corporation of India, they have also been given support. They are very positive to the community so that starvation or a famine-like situation is not created. And one very important and very touching gesture of government of Maharashtra was that from 14th February, over 1.31 lakh migrant sugarcane workers who work in Jodi, because sugarcane industry works on the basis of Jodi. You have you have to have one male worker, along with that a woman worker, who they were stuck in the sugarcane belt, and they have been allowed to go back to their place after the test. So I think what we see that impact of COVID-19 in the rural India in terms of the work, what kind of job opportunities they are getting. One is wages, whether their employers are paying them wages, and also MG Narega work has now resumed. So there are many, like that's what the government is saying, that there is a 3 times more registration for Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. So the state's responsibility, their food security, issue of food security, and also the health needs of the people in the agrarian sector, they have become very pronounced. Now, women as healthcare seekers, if we see that during last 5 weeks of a pandemic, most of the private nursing homes have closed down. Services of coronavirus infected public hospitals and health posts, they have stopped for non-coronavirus patients, because whole healthcare providers are focusing on COVID-19. And there is that's why the public health services, they have become highly inadequate, because we have the major share of healthcare services in India is of the private healthcare. So reproductive matters of women, they have been severely hampered. So women's organizations and the health organizations, they have demanded that emergency contraception, safe abortion, safe childbirth, that by the public health department and also by the private nursing home should be resumed very fast. Maintain an adequate stock of menstrual hygiene. That means Bombay Municipal Corporation, they have given the responsibility of distribution of 1 lakh sanitary pads to Tata Institute of Social Sciences. And similarly, I'm sure other local self-government bodies also must be doing. Training of medical staff and frontline volunteers to recognize sign of domestic violence and also provide immediate appropriate services. For example, now the national level list has been created. National Commission for Women has come up with an advisory on domestic violence. So criminal justice system, the frontline workers, they have been oriented online, and 13 medical big 1,200 bedded, 800 bedded, 400 bedded hospitals at least in Mumbai city, they have a one-stop crisis center where the survivor of violence doesn't have to run from pillar to post, but all services, whether it's a health services or food or police support, that is converging into the casualty ward of municipal corporation. So in terms of
ma'am, just a second.
Yeah.
I request you to be kindly closer to the desktop speaker so that the voice is clear.
Yeah.
And you are
I'll do.
to it. Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah. Now, the best practices that we have seen in terms of governance structures and the kind of support system that has been created, like a lot is written about Kerala. In fact, globally also there is a major discussion going on about the Kerala model, where self-help organizations, self-help groups like Kutumbashri, they played a pivotal role. Even earlier, when there was a floods in Kerala also, they had played very important role. And how the whole care work, how the support work, how the disaster management has been humanized. There is a human touch and also respect. Small things, like if you have a workers from say 8 states and each one has a different food habits. So sensitivity to that also, like if people from workers from north would want, they would not be happy with the khichdi day in and day out. So these SHGs have also taken care that, okay, they are used to roti, they are used to chapati, so they would provide that. They would not, like if they are in Gujarat, they would not like jaggery. So small, minute things also have been taken care of by these women's organizations and self-help groups, whether they are in Kerala or Maharashtra. Even Delhi, we have seen massive involvement of hello.
Kind request to all please mute participants.
All of you mute your mic, please.
Requesting all participants.
All of you, please mute your mic. Ma'am cannot speak. Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. So the major concerns of the women's organization, one is that ensure delivery of reproductive health services, sanitary kits, menstrual health supplies, and maternal health care. Also ensure those who are suspected, women who are suspected or even probable or confirmed COVID patients, they get a full range of health care. Number two, by providing the healthcare, we need to understand that 85% of Indian women suffer from anemia, iron deficiency, anemia, calcium deficiency. So diet becomes very important. Ensure availability of curfew passes to the family members of women who are affected by COVID-19. Balanced diet for pregnant and lactating mothers is very important both in the communities and in the shelter home. Make provision of 90 days of wages to all pregnant women from their employers, and also lactating women with infants, which are their infants are less than 6 months of age. They should get the 3 months, 90 days of wages. Services of women's helpline, short stay homes or shelter homes, they should be fully functional, because in between there was a complaint. But now one thing good, because even those who are in this community or this thing, they have mobile and they have a smartphone, so not, but a cheaper variety of mobile is there with everywhere, and they immediately report that services are not functioning. So in between, I got a call from PTI that some of the helplines for domestic violence were not working, and immediately we checked and put system in place and saw to it that what were the hitches, this thing. Plus some of the essential services for women and children, especially those who are facing domestic violence during the crisis period. I think about that also state commissions for women, national commissions for women, and the women's rights organization, they have come out. So we have a directory of support services for standard students, women-headed households, persons with disability, and transgender community. And you can see here, I'm showing some of the pictures of Vacha, which is a women's organization working with adolescent girls. All these adolescent girls who are working in schools and colleges, they have been trained within 1 week of the lockdown. They were trained to do the data collection, micro planning, need assessment, and provide targeted support so that relief material is not wasted, no cynicism is generated that in undeserving people are taking away things. So full system, whatever research methodology we have taught in the schools and colleges, in the research institutions, these students are using their creative genius to do this thing, and lot of volunteers. Now we have thousands of volunteers, student volunteers, youth volunteers from Bombay University, from SNDT Women's University, from TISS and Nirmala Niketan. They are the front line. They were the first one to come up with the band of volunteer and intervention in the most difficult communities where there was a complete lockdown, and they started working. You have organizations like Ghar Bachao, Ghar Banao, Helping Hand Trust. I showed their pictures also in their action. They started working right from 16th of March. Even before the lockdown, they started, because they were working for the Mahul, those who were relocated from Mahul to the place which the Chief Minister allotted 300 houses. So they knew what was happening at the community. So this is, I think, very, very empowering experience that we are seeing with the youth. Interventions of the volunteers of the educational institutions in terms of, say, relief operations, distribution of kit, distribution of sanitary material, which TIS students are doing, distribution of masks, making of cloth bags. Like there are several SHGs and some of the actresses and all. They also sitting at home, they have made cloth bags and given to Ghar Bachao, Ghar Banao and Helping Hand Trust that give them grain and whatever your kit should be of 16 kg, 20 kg should be given in a cloth bag Volunteering for the community kitchens. I think here we see the major breaking of gender stereotypes, because so many kitchens, I think in my earlier picture I showed that in the community kitchens, men are volunteering at every level, right from cutting vegetables, sorting fruit, or fruits, or running the kitchen, making many of them would check in Google the recipes they are doing. So I think that is a very, very empowering experience. Networking with the supply chain. I think here both the supply chain and the demand chain have collapsed. Because demand chain mainly because people don't have wages. They have not got the wages. Employers are not picking up phone when these workers or domestic workers ring up, because they have lost their wage of the month of March and also now month of May. So 2 months wages they don't have. So supply, they don't have purchasing power. And at the same time, supply chain, because of the lockdown, so many grocer, farmers, wholesale dealers, they had a problem. So now the role of civil society organization becomes very important. Coordinating with the GOs. When you are an institution, when you are a registered body, it is easy to get the pass for moving around, or easy to get the permission. For example, say Ghar Bachao, Ghar Banao, or Helping Hand Trust. When the big camp was shelter camps for 500 migrant workers, 1,200 migrant workers were started. Where would you get your regular water? You got a big playground. You have created your place beds for them. So networking with the local self-government bodies, whether it is a municipal council or municipal corporation in this thing, if you do the mass level cooking, because the distribution of kit which they started initially, which would be very expensive, because one kit would cost 700 rupees. Now, after the price hike of food inflation, there is the kits would cost around 1,200 rupees, and now on a long-term sustained basis, it's very difficult. So many of them have started now community kitchen in a very democratic way, where the people who are there, they decide what they want to eat, what type of masalas they want to give, and how they want to procure. So the role of community-based organizations, civil society organizations, women's organizations, and NGOs and self-help groups is that of a facilitator. So you need LPG gas, you need electricity, and some of these Helping Hand Trust shelter homes, even entertainment they have organized, because the 6 weeks, so many of them are bored with the camp life. So in the evening, they show movies. All things you need a lot of forward and backward linkages. Micro planning is very important. You saw these volunteers from ASHA doing micro planning, need assessment, identification of specification. And the most important thing which emerged in this relief operation is that people they think that taking relief is violating their dignity. So many deserving people, they would not come out to accept support. And it was their neighbors, or it was these community-based organizers who would say that, look, they have not come. They feel shy all along their life. And in Maharashtra, especially, we have heard Kashtachi Bhakar, like you have to earn your living, earn your food. That is, the ethos are so strong in Indian working class that the community-based organizations are the ones who find out that who are the ones who are left out, whether they are elderly person, or they are a person with diabetic who need a special type of food, or a person with heart condition, person with disability, or those who are excluded due to caste, religion, or gender, like women-headed households. So many widows, deserted, divorced women in the community, they may feel shy. They may not be able to even bully, because there are those who are more aggressive. They would be the one who would corner everything. So preparation of audio-visual clips, messages, short video films, and also some of the is very, very important. There is a one cynical way of looking at it, that people are taking selfies with the beneficiary. I think that is unethical. It should never happen. But at the same time, all NGOs, civil society organizations, neighborhood groups, and volunteers, they are sourcing crowdfunding. Okay, you are accountable. There is a social accountability, that the way you have raised money, or you have raised grain, or you have got biscuits from the corporate houses, some 1,200 packets of biscuit. You need to keep a record. You need to they give back to the community that this is how it has been distributed. Don't focus on person, just focus on the process. I think that is very important. And I think we in educational institution know that NAC committee always asks, give us photographic evidences. Otherwise, you people are wordsmith, you can churn out an impressive report, but have you actually done this work or not? So I think this is very important. Preparation of educational and recreational material is very important because children are at home, students, young people are at home, they are getting bored. So I think that is also happening in a big way. Using personal vehicles for relief goods. I think we have seen so many youth with four-wheelers and two-wheelers who would generally go out for a ride. They are the ones now into relief operations. They are the ones who are using those resources to reach out to people. Culture of webinars, Zoom talks, panel discussions for the citizens is keeping us connected with each other and also know what is happening where. Newspapers are there, but at the same time, I think people to people, face to face, it is seen is very important. And also the film screenings in different in the camps that is happening, maintaining all the code of conduct of social I would not use the word social distancing. It should be physical distancing and social solidarity. So I think what all these NGOs and civil society organizations have conveyed in last 6 weeks, and I think the same ethos should continue in future also, of physical distancing. But even in the midst of physical distancing, you are maintaining social solidarity. Another, now coming to a very important concern of how the women's organizations globally, nationally, and locally have done the linking of violence against women and children with the other institutional issues that we have. One is economic insecurity and poverty related stress. Second one, and how to address that. Second one is the quarantine, lockout, social isolation, how it creates a situation where earlier, if you faced violence, you could cry for help and people would come. Now that doesn't happen. So you are with the perpetrator and you don't have any social support. Third one is like I received a call from Shastri Nagar, a girl whose mobile has been snatched by the people who perpetrated violence. It was luckily she just from the window, she shouted for help, and the social worker approached the helpline. Third one is a disaster and conflict related unrest and instability, because so many times there is scarcity of food, scarcity of water, scarcity of resources, and also there is a local level tension is also created, instability is created, people become insecure and suddenly they just want to leave the place. And how do you handle the situation without using violence and massive state repression? Fourth one is exposure to exploitative relationship due to changing demographics, because people are leaving, they are getting dislocated from one place, relocated to other. In the process, we have heard some of the tragedies of sexual violence or confinement or trafficking, and rumor of trafficking, which created a tragedy in Thane district, because it was the rumor, the WhatsApp message that people are coming to extract their kidney, and the people, 500 people became violent. So that is also happening. Fifth one is the reduced health service availability, because most of the attention is given to coronavirus and other health services. So people who are with the comorbidities, like they have a diabetes or heart failure, heart condition or blood pressure, they are the ones who get neglected, and even women who are pregnant and lactating. So access to the first responders, whether they should be the community-based organization, they are the first responder, they are the one who are mediating between the health center and the community. The sixth one is the virus-specific sourcing of violence. Yeah.
Can we do our first poll now?
Yeah. Yeah. So
there is a poll coming up on your screen, participants. You may participate in this, and then ma'am will give her comments on that.
Yeah. So sixth one is that. Can I complete my 9 points?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. The seventh one is inability of women to temporarily escape abusive partners, mainly because of lockdown and restrictions and curfew, and Section 144 applicable. Eighth one is exposure to violence and coercion in response to efforts. Like once you try for a help, where you are using the helpline and you are caught, and matter becomes public and there is no alternative shelter, then it becomes very difficult. In city like Mumbai, we have shelter. 13 hospitals are providing the shelter, emergency shelter, but otherwise a backlash of violence becomes even more when women seek help. Ninth is the violence perpetrated against the healthcare workers. We have heard several cases of doctors being beaten up, nurses being beaten up, abusive behavior of some of the patients. They are also like quite insecure. But I think protecting healthcare workers, or the tragic incident in Chennai where a doctor affected by COVID-19, their crematorium, that their funeral was not being allowed in the crematorium. So I think these are some of the challenges that we need to deal with, and these are the challenges that we are facing. Yeah. Hello. Yes. Can I go ahead? Hello. Am I audible?
Please go ahead, ma'am.
Yes. So now because of these 9 types of problems that we are facing, the women's organizations have created helplines where the NGOs are responding to the calls. Educational institutions have also created helplines, and civil society organizations, and also there are counseling centers like iCall by TISS. Also receives calls. National Commission for Women has created a whole system in collaboration with the district authorities. Now even at a district and tehsil level, helplines have emerged, and they are being constantly uploaded on the websites of the state governments. And Shakti Shalini, the women's organization in Delhi, they have come up with a helpline, state-wise helpline, which came up for the first, like immediately after lockdown. These helplines were created. A lot of animation films are made by educational institutions about on dealing with COVID. Do I also need to submit? Because it is showing on my screen also.
Ma'am, you will give your comments, ma'am, after they have participated.
Yeah, but it is showing on the screen. Okay.
We'll just wait for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
To take this. Participants, please answer quickly. Now, I'm ending the poll, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. More participation of women. Yeah. About that. So about the more participation of women, I think we have to prepare, because India is going for Industry 4.0. Gig economy is becoming increasingly powerful in the cities, and artificial intelligence robots are coming in the manufacturing sector. So skill development and technical training is very important, number one. Number two, those who are in the agrarian sector, in the informal sector, we have to see that their social security and the social protection measures are in place. And we have this law, Unorganized Sectors Workers Social Security Social Protection Act 2008. It's very important. The labor code, which now demands, like 2 days back, we got on 1st of May, yesterday only, we got the labor code, where the informal sector workers, the working hours are increased from 8 to 12. I think it is going to have a very detrimental effect, because 6 weeks of coronavirus has not only the poor and working class, but also in the middle class, the nourishment has been affected, and you can't get high productivity, and you can't make people work for 12 hours. For last 200 years, the working class movement has struggled for standard of 8 hours. ILO standard of decent work also demands that it should be 8 hours of work. So I think we need to convince the decision makers that they should be 12 hours working for the workers. I think that should be repealed, and they should fix 8 hours limit. So that is very important. The second issue, what is the third one you said? Can you show me the, The second one is that capacity building for the gig economy is very important, especially for those who are in the education institution, those who have degree. So the white collar employment and even the platform based employment is coming, like person like organization platform like uh, are providing right from domestic work to beauticians work, or more than 123 types of services are provided by platforms like Urban Craft. So, and I think increasingly, and during this lockdown also, use of technology has increased, not only in India, in Latin America, Africa, industrialized world, everywhere, gig economy has become far more powerful. Like we never thought of such a wide scale use of for surveillance. Earlier, we had only thought of CCTV, but now there are so many other surveillance systems that is also being used. So it's going to affect the workforce. Humanization of informal sector is extremely important, and I think 35%, like the largest number of participants have shown, because you all, I know most of you have had a first-hand experience of what is happening at a ground level. So I think that is for that we need to have a legal system. We already have a law, 2008 law on informal sector worker. The implementation is extremely important so far as this law on social security, social protection, and also the minimum income. And this whole demand by the organizations like PUCL and Jana Swasthya Sabha that 90 days of wages to the informal sector should be given. We have massive donations being made by the corporate world, by the and by the film stars and sports stars. I think the corpus has been created. That corpus, the top priority should be given for the humanization of informal sector worker. We have to acknowledge that they are their skills, their efficiency, their productivity, their hard work is responsible for growth of India's economy. The fourth aspect is about the paradigm shift in the situation of the migrant labor. That means the migrant labor, we have to treat them as a city makers. We have to treat, and not only rural to rural migration, like whole sugar industry. India is one of the largest suppliers of sugar in the world. And sugar industry, you can see one state of Maharashtra alone has a 3.1 lakh sugar workers, workers working in the sugar industry. So I think rural to rural migration, rural to urban migration, and cross-country migration. Like cross-country migration, we have seen, we saw to that, like, so most of the nation states saw to it that their people, their students or migrant workers who are stranded in the Middle East or in the Western countries, they were brought back in the plane. The same way, we need to do the same thing for the migrants within the country, whether it is a train or bus. It is a heavy duty, high cost this thing, but I think that should be the top priority. So I would like to end with the conclusion that reduction of economic inequality through engendered public economics is very important. So we need to use our public economics, gender responsive participatory budgeting, whatever is the experience at grassroots level should reflect in the policy making. So more and more evidence-based policies that we need to have, protection services to deal with violence against women and children, domestic violence and intimate partner violence in the context of lockdown, safe transportation for the migrant workers, they demand urgent attention. And along with this, human rights organizations are also demanding that state needs to adopt human rights based protocol with regard to people in prison, because how do prisoners maintain social distancing or physical distancing? Administrative migration centers like shelter homes that we have created for the migrant workers, quarantine centers, confinement camps, people with disabilities in institutions and psychiatric facilities who are high risk of COVID-19 contagion due to confinement conditions. So I think we need the protocols in place so that governance structures, they know how to handle the situation, and it will also reduce psychological and physical violence. Yeah.
Ma'am, are you finished? I mean, with your presentation?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now we will take some questions.
Yeah.
We'll take some questions from our
Yeah.
audience.
So last, I have given the at last I have given some urgent priorities we need within the to face the COVID-19 pandemic. One is a safety and personal protection equipment for frontline health workers. That should be given the top priority because so many of them are getting infected. Second one is water and sanitation departments. They have to say that reconnect all those water supply and sanitation supply, even if they have not paid the tax. So that means they should not, the clean potable water should be made available. Separate labor helpline we need to create because we have helpline for women, we have helpline for elderly, we have helpline, police helpline for emergency. For fire, we have the same thing. We have to create labor helpline in regional languages so that people speaking Kannada, Gujarati, Odia, Bengali, Hindi, they can reach out. Arrangement for safe return of all migrant workers and also the existing debts, they should be waived. Learning through electronic media, I think in this also, only 20% of Indian children are electronically connected. So how are we going to, I think we'll have to depend more on FM radio and TV channels. So the weightage that we are giving for that for computer-based or Zoom technology or webinar, I think equal weightage we will have to give to FM radio and television channels also, so far as education of children is concerned. And these are the references I have used for my today's talk. Yeah, now it's over. So can we have some question answers? Hello.
Yes, ma'am, now thank you very much for your address. Now we'll take the questions. So those who wish to ask the question, please raise your hand and we'll unmute. Firdaus, go ahead, unmute yourself and talk.
Yeah, you can even share your experiences. Yeah.
Firdaus, can you start?
Hello.
Yeah.
Madam, I'm Arpita Kulkarni. I just want to know what will happen to these migrant laborers. Do you think that now it is a reverse migration? They are going back to their own, what you can say, houses or the villages, native places.
Yeah.
Do you think that they will come back again after the COVID impact?
Yes, because even their state governments are also encouraging that. And now the new, after the lockdown, and I think in so many places, even the industrial workers are the work after 14th of February, factories have started working. No,
yeah.
So that they will come back. Yes, definitely.
No, but now they had such a bad experience in this particular COVID period. So I doubt whether all of them will come back, and then otherwise we'll have to suffer in the cities because, as you said very rightly, they are city makers.
Yeah.
So there may be a short of labors.
Yeah, but also technology is also coming. No, technology is coming in a big way. Automation, artificial intelligence, robots in the production process are also coming. Moreover, the experience of 6 weeks of lockdown is also realized that decentralized production is much more dependable. If you have some community based, the needs of the communities are managed, are within the community. So I think even production process is going to have major change.
Thank you, madam. And really, I experienced it was a good experience, ma'am. To listen to you. Thank you so much.
Where are you from?
I'm from Kalyan, Maharashtra, Mumbai. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Snehal Shirke, you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask question. Ms. Snehal Shirke.
Dr. Indira is also.
Hello.
Yeah.
Please can you hear me? Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am, can you please elaborate on the human rights point?
Yeah. See, the human rights, the protocols, they have both World Health Organization, International Labour Organization, UNHCR, and UN Women. They have come up with the protocols about and how to respect people's dignity and rights at the time of pandemic. That means use of violence, suppression of information, and not bouncing relief measures in a proper way so that people can reach. So these are the protocols about state management of so far as workers are prisoners' rights. In the case of pandemic, how will you manage prisoners' rights? That's why so many state governments, those who are not hardcore criminals, they have been allowed to go back. Those who are on parole, they have been allowed. So I think social when you have a lockdown and the conditionality of social distancing or physical distancing, all those crowded places where social physical distancing is not possible, that you have to make the arrangement. You just can't have 12,000 or prisoners in one jail. Okay, you have to there also the same rules of social physical distancing are applied. Another thing that if people out of insecurity or whatever reason, if they not follow the instruction of the state, you can't use force like a very brutal force against them. No, that is there. Another thing is right to information. That every citizen has a right to information. Freedom of press. You can't suppress any pandemic. Currently, the anger which world community is showing against China is that suppression of information. So there are protocols about human rights, human dignity, patients' rights, right to food, right to education, and right to information.
We've got several questions, ma'am, so I'm taking one by one. Professor Indra, please go ahead.
Yeah, it's nice to catch with you.
Yeah,
and technology has given this facility, and it is quite comprehensive. I just want your opinion on two issues. So one is voluntary organizations, civil society has raised the operation and situation, and they are doing a lot of things. But it is again, as usual, they are in limited particular few pockets. So don't you think that it is time for the government to formally involve voluntary organizations? And that is one thing. And I want your thoughts on this and how to go about and how we can create that kind of pressure on the government to formally involve voluntary sector. And second thing is about industry and CSR. So CSR initiatives also, like, even if you go by textbook and, it is there in the areas where, CSR and they can take up CSR. So there also, I think we need an agency or some model, nodal agency to coordinate the kind of interventions. Otherwise, what happens, those who have access to, like, asymmetric information and all those things, those who have access to will get it, and otherwise others will be left out. So I want your thoughts on these two.
Yeah. In the first place, that as you say, that the capacity of NGOs, like if you have a 20 million migrant workers to then the individual NGOs can look after 500,000 at the most 1,500, 3,000. So that is there. Their reach is limited. So in the final analysis, the state has to take up this issue and responsible. So the same NGOs who are doing relief work, who are working in the community, they are also sending petition. There are several public interest litigation filed in the Supreme Court of India, in the high courts of various state governments about proactive role of the government structure in relief and this thing, and they are documenting their experience mainly to see that it is not a question of resource crunch. It is a question. It is a question of democratic government. It is the NGOs which coined the term city makers. It is action for past 10 years in Delhi when they started the night shelter. Delhi has 87 night shelters for migrant workers. How did they build the campaign? That you just can't say that the migrants are burden on the cities. This thing. If they have one mouth, they have two hands. That argument we take. So I think it's very important that NGOs, organizations, they are working in collaboration. They are working with the state, because when you need electricity, when you need gas, cooking gas, you need water, you have to deal with the local self-government bodies. So I think, and now, like in last 6 weeks, we have seen that state is also behaving very respectfully with the NGOs. Okay? So that we have seen sudden change, because the harsh reality, like even when the family members are not ready to accept you if you come from outside, And imagine these NGO workers, you saw these young girls, 15-year-old, 18-year-old girl from Vacha, or a 20-year-old, 25-year-old boys and girls from Helping Hand Trust or a Garba Bachao Garba. They are working. What do they have? They have only hand gloves and mask. Okay, some of them wear goggles so to protect their eyes. But with that, consistently, without fail, working for 6 weeks, bureaucrats are also seeing that. Corporators are seeing that. MPs and MLAs are seeing how these people are working with commitment. So I think this is very important example that people with limited resources, very but high level of commitment can mobilize support, no, and they are leaders by example. So that is, I think, very important thing. And the second one is that the corporate, see, most of the corporate support has gone to the government. It has either gone to the PM fund or Prime Minister fund or Modi fund, Medicare, or it has gone to the state government fund. So I think at corporate level, you hardly see them. Maybe they have done checkbook philanthropy, but you don't see their actual workers, no, like people, executives and people's in their this thing working the way they. The enthusiasm with which corporate world participates in a marathon, for example. The marathon, you see they are in a full force, but you don't see them in support to the community in the context of COVID pandemic. So I think corporate has its limitation. They are given money, but they are not the frontline workers.
Yeah. Can we take the questions first and then you can answer, ma'am, all together?
Yeah.
So we'll go one by one. Tanvi, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Miss Tanvi?
Ma'am. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
I'm right. Yes.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yeah,
yes.
Go ahead.
Ma'am, I actually wanted to ask gender implications on anything. We mainly look at over there, you know. And
why is it breaking?
Your voice is breaking.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, now
Now
go quickly.
Where are you from?
Ma'am, I am from Jain College itself. And I have a question that when we talk about gender implications, we talk most about women only. And somewhere we sideline the other genders like transgenders and bisexuals, etc. Especially on the transgenders, I want to ask that how are they coping up with the pandemic right now, and what are the measures that are taken to, you know, address their issues, and are they being solved or not? That is my
So
question.
see, when we talk about gender, we talk about social relations. Everyone is included. And we are not even talking in terms of gender binary. We are going beyond gender binary.
Okay.
And transgender, they have their now own organizations also. And all the NGOs and CBOs, they are also included. They were the first one who were completely excluded. Even prestigious religious organizations, when they were asked to give relief, they were ready to give relief for the migrant, they were ready to give relief for the poor, but when it came to transgender and sex worker, they were not ready to give. Those who are the big donors, they were not ready to give relief their food. So finally, it's an organization. In fact, the attention about that was invited to me by Ghar Bachao, Ghar Banao, and Helping Hand Trust people who are supporting both the communities. And women's organizations are also supporting transgender as well as sex workers and those who are socially stigmatized.
Ma'am, I would request kindly to take all the questions together. So allow me to take the questions from everyone.
Okay, ma'am.
You can go ahead, ma'am. So Firdaus, can you please, Ms. Firdaus,
Yeah. Sorry.
Question ahead?
Yes.
Yeah, Ms. Firdaus.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Please ask your question. Ms. Chaco, can you please unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question?
I think
I have unmuted from my end.
Archana, your voice is breaking.
Ms. Chaco.
Archana, your voice is breaking. I think that's a problem.
Now is it clear, sir?
Yeah.
Hello, good morning,
It
ma'am.
is clear.
Yeah, Ms. Firdaus, go ahead with your question.
Ma'am, my question is, what is going to be impact on the job sector for women in informal sector post COVID-19 era?
Ms. Chako, can you please put forward your question?
Yes. Good afternoon, Vibhuti ma'am, and thank you, Archana. My question is similar to the one that was just asked now, but I want to know practically how we can start slowly, getting the maids and the cooks to get back into the apartment and houses, and how we can slowly. Most of them are all migrants. And I'm from Bangalore, and we have a sizable Nepali population over here who are doing, who are a part of the unorganized sector doing these kind of jobs. So I want to know how they can be brought back, and what are the measures we need to take so that we can smoothen the process. That is one part of the question. And I see that it's how the implication it is going to be even in the IT industry. Though we understand that most of them can work from home, but what I understand is there is going to be a lot of layoffs happening, and what kind of preparation should be there on that front. I'm asking all this from Bangalore perspective. Thank you, ma'am.
Another question from Ms. Rupali. You can please go ahead. And Ms. Varda next.
Hi, this is Rupali from वाचा and मेरे दो सवाल है जिसमें से एक है कि वाचा संस्था में मैं काम करती हूँ, वहाँ के काफी 15, 16, 17 साल के बच्चे हैं जो इस तरह की हेल्प वाचा के साथ कर रहे हैं. उन्हें कर्फ्यू पासेस नहीं मिलते हैं. क्या हम इसको लेकर गवर्नमेंट को कुछ सजेस्ट कर सकते हैं? वन क्वेश्चन. एंड अनदर इज कम्युनिटीज में टॉयलेट्स के काफी इश्यूज है. एक जगह पे जहाँ पे कम्युनिटी के लोगों को कम्युनिटी में दबा के रखा जा रहा है, वहां पर सैनिटाइजेशन टॉयलेट के जो फैसिलिटी है वो ठीक तरह से नहीं हो पा रही है. केडीएमसी जो है कल्याण में वो इस तरफ पूरी तरह से ध्यान नहीं दे रही है. दे आर बिजी विद द कोविड-19. तो इसके लिए क्या कहीं और कंप्लेन कर सकते हैं या फिर क्या अवेयरनेस किस तरह से यहाँ पे काम हो सकता है?
Okay, ma'am, you can go ahead and answer then, ma'am, please.
No, ma'am, I want to ask question.
Okay,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
I'm Priya from Vacha.
You're not audible.
Okay. I'm Priya from Vacha.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
No,
Hello.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, बोलिए.
So मैम मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि अभी ड्यूरिंग द पेंडेमिक बहुत सारे जो कम्युनिटी है उनको अलग तरीके से टारगेट किया जा रहा है. हम वाचा में काम करते हैं तो बहुत जैसे कि बेसिकली मुस्लिम है या जो भी लोअर कास्ट के लोग हैं उनको इस पेंडेमिक माइग्रेंट वर्कर में बहुत अलग तरीके से प्रोपोगेट किया जा रहा है और उसकी वजह से बहुत सारे लोगों के जॉब भी जा रहे हैं. तो ये जो माइग्रेंट वर्कर का कंसेप्ट है या जो ये पेंडेमिक में बात उनके ऊपर जो इफेक्ट होने वाला है उसके लिए किस तरह के काम गवर्नमेंट से और एज अ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हमें भी करना चाहिए ताकि उनको रिलीफ मिले. क्या हम इसके बारे में सोच सकते हैं?
Okay, ma'am, you can please go ahead because then we'll have to wind up.
Just before that, ma'am, one thing. That is, all these migrant workers which are going home today, there was news, many of them walking for long distance, their digits of their foot, they are lost. There are so many problems and all that. But after going back, is the community ready to accept them? Because many places you will find that they already debarred them, they are not allowing to come and all that. So, what they are going from here, all the time they are traveling, with the hope. And after going there, there is no hope, that kind of situation. So is that the government or that particular state is actually addressing these issues? Because after going back, if they are not like, say, na do bhi ka, ghar ka na ghat ka, that kind of situation should not be there.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask
Ma'am.
a question?
Very bad, ma'am. Some ma'am, quarantine
Can I ask a
situation for
question?
particular people is very bad.
Yes, Priya.
Particular caste and community people. So how can they suffer after?
Okay, Miss.
Yes, ma'am. Just a small query. Just a little intervention, ma'am. Please. Can I ask a question?
Me too. I would
Yes.
like to also
Okay.
ask a
Thank you,
question.
ma'am. Ma'am, actually, yes,
Thank you.
yes. I'll be too fast. Just, ma'am, I just want to know the implications on children, especially street children or children who are already victims of sexual abuse. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Can I come in?
Yeah.
Hello. Can I come? Can I ask a question?
Yes, yes. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm Namaste, Vibhuti ji. This is Meera from Mysore.
Yeah.
And wonderful presentation, much needed and very timely. Thank you, Arpita, for the for organizing this. Okay, this was wonderful to bring us all together. My question is about, I mean,
You're not audible.
Hello. It is not audible.
It is not audible.
Hello, madam. It is not audible. Yeah.
Archana, could I request that others who are waiting in line to ask questions, they can probably type it in the chat?
Yes, that's what we can take some questions, but the time is.
Hello, am I audible?
Time is running out, so we need to do it quickly. Yes, please go ahead and please put your question in short.
I wanted to know about Vibhuti ji's, inferences from the various, crisis response. I mean, response that the governments had. How would you rate, if you can broadly rate these various governments and regions, for example? I'm not really looking out for you to actually rank in terms of, Kerala doing better or Maharashtra doing good. But basically, what do you think from your, what do you infer from your study that the best gender sensitive response has been? A. And the second part is, how do you see that our post pandemic we could have a more gender sensitive work situation, because everyone is talking about 24/7 availability online, because of lockdown. There can be a backlash after this whole thing is over, and as you know very well, we are all how would it bear on the women? What about the women workers, whether in the organized sector or in the unorganized sector? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. These are the two questions. Bye.
Yeah, those who are, Mr. Mangai Dhanpal, would you like to unmute yourself and put your question quickly ahead? Mr. Mangai Dhanpal. Dr. Lata, can you please unmute yourself? Mr. Mangai Dhanpal.
Okay. Archana, I suggest you take the name on the chat, their questions,
yes,
and forward to madam, so madam can start answering at least now,
Okay.
Otherwise, the time is getting lapsed in this particular.
Yes, ma'am, surely. Yes, sir, surely. So, ma'am, you can go ahead with your answer, and I will take the questions there quickly.
Madam, you have to unmute. You have to unmute, ma'am.
One.
You have to unmute. Press that red button.
Yeah, now it's okay.
Yeah. So I think the first one about what Firdaus has asked about impact on job in the informal sector, I think there is going to be a major rehaul of informal sector, and especially there will be more increase in self-employment. That I'm seeing it more so, and the MSME, medium and small scale industries, there will be a lot of retrenchment. And that's why I think more and more self-employment will, and that we have seen even in the industrialized country, that even in city like Berlin, 40% women have reported themselves to be self-employed. That means domestic work, service sector work, care work, elderly care work, all that is going to be the only option that they will have. So that is and for that, I think we need to massive skill training program have to be started for girls, because even in our industrial training institutions, when it comes to, there are more than 200 types of courses are there. But for girls, they have only screen printing and tailoring, and that market is saturated, garment industry. So I think all types of training, skill training, we will have to give to women in the informal sector. Second one is Rupali's question is that of that how do we get, so see about the curfew passes, then the NGOs have come together and they are the making representation. So I think local corporate, local member of parliament or legislative assembly member, and I think we can only through them we can get the passes. They are the ones who can authorize us. So as an organization, registered organization, that is happening. And second one is the toilet. So sanitation is a major challenge that we are facing. And Jana Swasthya Sabha, Local Health Assembly, has also raised this issue. There is a petition filed about the condition of, and I think more employment, because if sanitation workers are not paid on time, that has been the complaint everywhere. So I think their payment has to be this thing and proper. It should not be just casually taken. You have to give them proper contract. They can, and plus most important thing is look at the fatality rate among sanitation workers. You have to give them personal protection equipments. Without that, nobody is going to come, and that's why sanitation workers have run away. So top priority is personal protection equipments for the frontline workers and sanitation workers the most, because they are exposed to a variety of infection, as we saw in the case of Dharavi also. Priya Patil's question about discrimination in relief operation. Yes, it has been reported everywhere. We are inundated by the WhatsApp messages and emails and video clips about this kind of discrimination at the community level we have, and that's why the protocol, human rights protocol, become very important. So along with relief, we also have to do awareness generation about the social issues, the constitution, whatever the public education has to continue. And also we have to pinpoint wherever the discrimination is there so that it can be addressed. So I think even taking it out in a public domain is also very important so that it can be addressed. When it comes to responsibility about the migrant workers, if they leave and the people there also don't accept them, and that has happened in many cases. It has happened where people have walked for 200 miles and they have reached Rajasthan from Mumbai and they have not been accepted. So I think that is why the intervention of the state government becomes very important. So what has begun from yesterday, all those 6 trains and the Shramik trains and all, it is not only taking them from the destination, one destination to other destination and relocating them, but also with the full responsibility of the state to see to it that they are there also when they reach their native place, they are looked after well. So that's why government intervention becomes very important, and that's why the working in tandem with the local government and sending state and receiving state becomes very important. Implications on children, street children. First of all, their street children are not street children after lockdown. They have been either housed in shelter homes or they are taken away. They are in the shelter. Maybe that is not even much studies have come out of what has happened during the lockdown on street children. But you don't see street children on the streets. Okay, so they may be either in their shelter home, or they may be with the NGOs, or what has happened because the rumors about trafficking of children has also expounded. Experiences of many COVID affected countries, if you see the UNHCR report, shows that trafficking of children and women have increased globally. So I think for India, we will have to take up, the university organized research institution will have to probe this issue more seriously, because they are totally powerless. Meera's question about the gender sensitivity, what kind gender sensitivity in this situation. I think it is, except for women's organization, nobody is raising issues. Even the democratic rights organization, civil liberties organization are not raising anything. Women's studies centers, I don't see them in picture at all. None of them are sticking out their neck. Not even poster, or they are not even visible in social media. In fact, the mandate of women's studies is teaching, training, research, documentation, and action. So action part of women's studies center is completely missing. Whatever I am doing is in spite of Women's Studies Center, not because of Women's Studies Center. I directly, I am a part of the social apostle group of the Bishop of Mumbai, Bishop Alvin, and with that I'm working on gender violence, and with these youngsters I help them facilitate in their relief operation, whether it is a Helping Hand Trust or Vacha or our Ghar Bachao Ghar Banao, but I think that is a very sad scenario, the women. So it is only women's groups, the feminist organizations and health organizations. Now, obviously, Jana Swasthya Sabha, the leadership is in the hands of women there also. So these are the two organizations, they are the conscience keeper so far as the gender sensitivity and gender issues are concerned. And I think the same, we have to strengthen them, and we have to focus it even in the post-lockdown period.
Ma'am, there are 3 more important questions. So shall I just quickly tell you?
Yeah.
So there's one question which has been asked by Ms. Jyoti, who's asking about major mental health issues, major mental health issues that different age groups, classes, and women, men, and transgender may be facing. Number 1. Number 2, do you see any changes coming in the family, a shift over responsibility and sharing of work attitude, or promoting women sincerely? And number 3, a third question which has come up is about the domestic help. How can they be helped more? Because many of them are feeling suffocated in their one-room apartment. So what more can be done about it?
Yeah. So first one is a mental health issue. I think it was the attention was invited in the very first week of lockdown, because the way people were making frantic calls, they were trying to run away, they were not respecting the lockdown mandate, and people were going out. Okay, so that is a and that's why many counseling centers, especially the ICOL, which started by TISS, and now we see increasing number of mental health counseling centers that emerge within the hospitals, within the educational institutions, and also within the NGOs. So I think that is a one, because you are not able to meet face to face. So that is one. But most important thing is training of frontline workers on mental health issues. That is also equally important. So online training on mental health issues, I think ICOL has started online training of the frontline workers. Second one is that the family values. Yes, we have seen, at least among the both in poverty groups and also in the middle class, a lot of change is taking place in terms of household responsibilities, and also seeing that how women are juggling, the multitasking of women being acknowledged. Though there are many frivolous jokes, WhatsApp and Facebook are full of video clips and frivolous jokes up to beauty parlor, how women deck up for 2 hours to throw their garbage at the gate. Those types of things are there. But overall, what we profiling in the whatever people are writing in the social media, that acknowledgement of multitasking of women has been there. And so many men, like if you see 10 years back when the study of Dharavi was done, women are working, their men are unemployed, and they are sitting at home. They would say that we close everything and do the washing of utensil. Otherwise, neighbors will poke fun at us. That you don't see it. Now, men are doing more and more housework across the class line. Third thing is question of a domestic help. I think the 30 crore in middle class and the upper class of India, they have their capacity to hire domestic help has increased drastically. You see homes where you have 4 types of care workers: elderly care person, child care person, top person who just comes sweeping and swabbing, and you would have a cook. Now all of these people, they have been rendered unemployed, and they are not getting their currently they are not getting any support, and many of them are dependent on the relief which is provided either by organized NGOs. I think that is a very important. The only organization they have is the All India Domestic Workers Union, which is a very powerful union. They are both into raising the issue at a government level, and they are also doing relief operations in a big way. In fact, they also have come. So I think the union is taking up, but the major trade unions have not taken up. They are focusing only on the concerns of the organized sector workers like you and me, 6% of the workforce who have a protection of labor legislation. But Domestic Workers Union is voicing that concern. Yeah.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And we would like to now thank you for taking out time for such a wonderful session that you have conducted today. Very informative and extremely relevant to our times. The way you spoke about relief operations, the volunteering for community kitchens, coordinating with the government officers, the networking, micro-planning, digital connect between workers, personal vehicles being used for relief goods, a variety of film screenings. I'm sure the way ahead is more of gender equality being ushered in. There will be reductions of inequalities, and technology is likely to be integrated in a much more effective way. Ma'am, thanks for such an enlightening session once again. And on behalf of Jai Hind College, would like to thank you. Sir, would you like to come in and speak something?
Yeah, I would like to really thank, not only when you said about a presentation, which she is knowledgeable. So question of presentation, just giving the slide is not the main part, but I think her heart is there. So that is a very important, because when she speaks about it, it is not like say she is reading it. She knows everything, it's on the tip of finger, and her heart goes for all those things which are happening outside. And that is what comes out when ma'am talks, and every time that is. And that is the reason I was looking at the comments which were given by the people. They're all agreeing to that ma'am is always, she's an orator, no doubt about it. But you know, when she actually brings you, the entire scenario comes in front of your eyes. I think that is a capability of her, you know, like say to make everybody aware about what is actually happening outside. You can see that, you can visualize it. So ma'am, hats off to you. And thank you very much for agreeing to come here. Not only Jai Hind has benefited, but many others. And I could see that Vacha people also coming and participating, and they had their questions and getting answers. I think you have done wonderful thing, reaching out to not only in Maharashtra, to Bangalore and other parts of the country, and giving them the assurance on showing them the new light and the new ways. I think thank you very much, ma'am. You know, wonderful.
At last, I would like to thank Sir you and Madam and Safina Madam for giving me this opportunity. I would also like to thank all my fellow travelers in the women's movement, human rights movement, health movement, and NGOs who have taken part in it. My colleagues in the academic fraternity throughout the country for asking very good questions. So many of my students are there. They have given that 2 hours of time for ask very meaningful question. I think it's a very, very rewarding and humbling experience. It gives me tonic for my further research on the subject. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All that ma'am's article has come out with the Mumbai University Journal, which has come out
Thank you so much, ma'am.
just yesterday. So it's the timing has just coincided.
Congratulations. That's wonderful.
And that's a wonderful article. Thanks to all the participants for taking out time and joining us for this session.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Continue the good work. Let us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vibhuti ma'am. Thanks a lot. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Archana. Thank you, Firdaus.
Who could not join, we will share video with them.
Ma'am, there's a you can share your presentation with everyone. People are asking on the chat.
I'll email it immediately.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thanks to all of you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
ma'am.
everybody.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Vibhuti. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So
Thank you,
stay safe now.
Vibhuti.
Hi, ma'am.
Till win time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. And Jai Shri Bhakti.
Thank you, Vibhuti ji. It was wonderful.
Yeah,
Waiting to have you in Mysore.
you did a marvelous job. And technology also did not create any problem. It really aided us. Really, yeah. So managing 500 participants is not an easy job. It is so well. Marvelous. Thank you.
Hello,
हाँ
Vibhuti.
बोलिए
Yes, after a long time I had listened to you.
Correct. Where are you?
As it is always.
Where are you now?
I am in Khalsa, ma'am. Khalsa College.
Yes, yes, yes.
Wonderful to listen today. You had covered all the aspects, ma'am. And really, as principal said, I was visualizing all these incidents, na? Because it's happening nowadays.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, ma'am. Keep it up.
Thanks. Thank you, madam.
Ji, this is Meera. I'm signing off. Thank you so much.
Okay, Dr.
Thank
Mitra,
you.
give my
Looking
regards to all
forward.
in Mysore.
Surely waiting to have you all. Okay. Bye. Bye. And
Indira ji and
everybody.
Everybody.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you to the organizers. Big thanks. And I think we should continue this good work. Okay. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Arundhati Roy.
Yes. Yeah. You know, there were 2-3 occasions to come, but I could not come. Maybe next time. Okay. See you then. Bye. Stay safe. Stay safe. Okay, bye.
Okay, I'm ending the session now, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Yeah, most welcome. And
Thank you very much, ma'am. It was a very thoughtful session for us.